Hello guys and welcome again to my channel. So we're gonna talk about the job order costing already. So congratulations are in order, I guess. Because in the last episode I told you that we are already through with the accounting cycle, the 10 steps of accounting cycle. Actually, if you have started looking at the videos from this series, we started with the accounting cycle for service entities, and then accounting cycle for merchandising entities. And finally, we have the accounting cycle for manufacturing entities. So we did that so that you'll be able to master what are those transactions that are unique with each of the types of entity based on the products or services that they are giving. Okay? So the unique part of the merchandise entities versus the service entities is the merchandise inventory type of transactions, like the purchase and the selling of that. And as to manufacturing, it is a little bit different from merchandising because, again, there are three types of primary costs, product costs, main product costs, like direct materials and then the direct labor and the factory overhead. And of course, we are also having some difference with manufacturing versus merchandising because aside from the costs, the manufacturing has three types of inventories. So one of it is the raw materials or 0% completed materials. That's the raw materials. And we have work in process or partially completed and the finished goods. Okay, I hope you still remember that. And because of those three, there are differences in entries, like the using of the work in process and putting on the direct materials there, the direct labor, applied factory overhead, the comparison between applied factory overhead and factory overhead control, as well as the variance, the closing of the actual factory overhead in the factory overhead control account and the applied factory overhead. So we did all that so that you'll be able to understand the unique transactions between the manufacturing and the merchandising. And actually, we have applied those entries in the 10 steps of accounting cycle. And while doing that, we also discussed how different the computation of the cost of sales of manufacturing. So actually, those things that we did, the cost of sales, computation of manufacturing, the three types of inventories, the three types of costs, as well as the entries, they are necessary in order to understand the job order costing. Okay? So it's, what do we call this? It's an error on the part of the students to study first the job order costing before understanding the factory overhead control, those three inventories, those three costs, the journal entries, and the cost of sales computation of the manufacturing. You have to understand those in order to understand this. So now, let's start the job order costing. Actually, I told you that accounting is actually simple. Like, if you are going to summarize, accounting is just like if you are going to give some person funds all throughout the years, and if ever you have given him 1 million. However, you have strict policies on how to disburse that. So, you're going to ask, where did you put the 1 million? So, the 1 million is the to be accounted for, and if ever you are already investigating where did those 1 million go to, that is as accounted for. So maybe on the disbursements there are receipts and remainder. Okay? Maybe some will be lost, something like that. So accounting is just the to be accounted for and as accounted for. Where did it go to? The second would be sometimes in accounting you just have to find the source. So if this is the funds, where di- where did it came from, something like that. And basically that is illustrated in the A is equal to L plus C, whereby the assets could be coming from the third party creditors, the L, and the capital is coming from the owner, something like that. Okay, it's something like that. So how does it relate to job order costing? On the job order costing, it's actually a style or a method which answers the question on the direct material cost, the direct labor, and the factory overhead, where does it go? So for example, there are amounts here, like 100,000, 300,000. Here is 600, something like that. Where does it go? So you can have job order costing to answer that. Okay? That's one of the methods. Actually, in the job order costing, all of the cost here, that is 400, 1 million. Normally, that is distributed between jobs. Job 1, job 2, for example, and job 3. So, for example, direct materials. On the 100,000, the 50,000 is on job 1. On the direct materials use of 100, 30,000 is in job 2, 20,000 is in job 3. So that's 100,000. It's like that. Okay? So, first, why is it, before we go to the 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 concept, the main concept of job order, why is it that the jobs are separated? Actually, in this job order costing system, some businesses or manufacturing entities uses this because they are actually catering specific needs of a client. So the unique needs of a certain client. And of course, if ever we talk about client 1, client 2, client 3, those clients wanted some unique products, right? So job order costing system is for customized products based on the specifications of a certain client. Like for example, you are tailoring for wedding gowns. So of course, the wedding gown of one customer is different from the wedding gown of another customer. And of course, another customer, they don't want to have the same wedding gowns, right? The same materials, the same style. Of course not. Okay? So again, job order costing is used by the entities which are giving customized products to the customers based on their specifications. Okay? So what are other examples? Example, um, car repairs. Car repairs. Of course, if you are repairing cars, of course, your customer one might need other type of service, right? Other type of repairs, other type of customization. Or else, aside from the wedding gowns, aside from the customized repairs, there could be um, houses, something like that. So of course, if I am a client, I don't want my house to be the same with the houses of others, something like that. Or else, you are an interior designer. Of course, there will be different jobs because the, what do you call this, specifications of customers are different. Okay? So your products here are heterogeneous depending on the customers. Okay? So it's very much opposite for process costing. Process costing is for homogeneous products. Like for example, the same white shirts, you are producing the same white shirts. Although there are different sizes, however, it could be mass produced. Okay, process costing is for mass production. Unlike here on the job order costing, this is for customized items, customized products based on unique specifications of clients or customers. Okay? That's why it's separated. Okay? Now, next. Of course, here is the process for job order costing. You have to imagine the flow of costs. For example, you are a manufacturing entity, Baby G manufacturing entity. Baby G manufacturing entity has raw materials inside the warehouse worth 2 million. Of course, that is just waiting. Okay? Now, if 100,000 was issued to job 1, 50,000 in this case, was issued to job 1, it will be recorded under job 1 in the job cost sheet. So from the warehouse, Warehouse will make a report because whoever is in charge with job 1 will make a materials, what do you call this? Will make a materials requisition request, oh, materials requisition request, materials requisition ordered on the warehouse, and then the warehouse will provide for that materials, and then the warehouse will make an entry that this is for job 1. Of course, if the materials are issued already to job 1, it will be tallied on the job cost sheet. So again, on the job order costing, these costs, where does it go? It will be distributed between jobs. Okay? Next, how about on direct labor? On the direct labor, especially if ever there are employees, imagine the employees. There are employees that are giving, for example, 3 hours a day for job 1, and another 3 hours here, and another 2 hours here. So, meaning, the direct labor cost is also subdivided by means of taking into account the hours that are being served by the employees that are directly converting or finishing the jobs. Okay? Converting the raw materials to finished goods. That's what I meant. So example, if you only have one employee, so he will work with job 1, job 2, job 3. So every day, he should have a card, time card, in which he will detail how many hours did he serve for job 1, how many hours did he serve for job 2, and how many hours did he work with job 3. Okay? So of course, you can get the direct labor already by means of getting the hours and multiplying it with the hourly rate of the employee. Again, this is still within my simple definition. So job order costing answers the question on the direct material cost, direct labor, and factory overhead. Where does it go? Of course, it's in the jobs. Okay? Now, how about applied factory overhead? So if there is an applied factory overhead, of course, normally the applied factory overhead, the basis in that one is the direct labor. It could be a rate times the number of direct labor hours or percentage. Percentage. How do we? Percentage of the direct labor cost. Something like that. So that will be automatic on job 1, job 2, and job 3. And why is it again that we use the applied, not the actual? It is because it's very difficult to trace first the actual factory overhead during the current year. You are only going to finalize the actual factory overhead at the end of the period. And imagine if ever we're talking about electricity. Okay? So electricity is, what do you call this? The driving factor is the kilowatts used. So how much will be the kilowatts used for job 1, job 2, and job 3? Sometimes it's still difficult to allocate that. You have to wait until the year end so that you'll be able to compute not only the electricity, there are other costs related to factory overhead. Okay? So, again, that's the job order costing. All of the costs, direct materials, direct labor, and factory overhead, where does it go? Of course, in the jobs. Okay? Next. Next is, sometimes, the job will be finished. For example, job 1 is finished. That will be part of the cost of goods manufactured. And if this job 2 and job 3, for example, has not been finished, they will become work in process end. Okay? So that's it. Sige. Let's have a very concrete example, okay? So that we will practice the job order costing. So, let's erase. Let's use this. Let's just expound. So the company has direct materials used or direct material cost of 100,000. The direct labor is 300,000. The factory overhead applied is 600 because the application rate is 200% of direct labor. That is the applied factory overhead. For example, we have job 1. Job 1 has already a material cost of 10,000, a direct labor of 20,000, and factory overhead. Factory overhead applied of 40,000. This is already started in the previous period. So that means this is a work in process beginning during the current year. For example, these are the details for current year. For example, in the current year, direct materials, these are the current costs. Current, meaning this month's cost or this period's cost. Again, this is job 1. There are already materials and direct labor that was applied to it as well as the factory overhead in the previous period. So during the current period, you have to finish this. So let's put unfinished. And then, of course, you have to work on that job 1. And aside from job 1, in order for it to be completed, you have also to complete the other jobs. Job 2 and job 3. Okay? So, based on the problem that we are crafting right now, the direct materials that were issued to job 1 is 50,000 and job 2 is 20,000 and job 3 is 30,000. And don't get me wrong, these direct materials for job 1 is in addition to this 10,000 because again, the job 1 has been started already in the previous period. Of course, we have the direct labor. The direct labor, for example, is since there are 300,000 here, so 50,000 also, and then we have 75,000. So 150. Okay, 150. So we have 225. The total of this is 225, right? And then we have 75 right here. Ah, that's it. 150, 75, 75. Right. And then we have the applied factory overhead. And based on this information, that's 200% of direct labor. So this is 300. And this is 150. And this is 150. Now, on the jobs, the first that will be completed normally is job 1. Because again, it was started already in the previous period. So it's logical that this will be finished first. For example, 200, 500,000. And there is a note here that this is already finished and surrendered. And what do you call this? Delivered. Delivered to the client. Just ignore my sweat, okay? Just focus on the lesson, please. Delivered to the client, okay? For 800,000. So that's the revenue, 800,000. Okay? Job 2, 20,000 plus 75,000 plus 150. This is 225 plus 20,000 is 245. And the footnote for this one is finished, but not yet delivered to the customer. How about job 3? Job 3, although the costs are already greater, this is still 90% complete. Now, you will be asked, how much is the cost of goods manufactured? Okay? The cost of goods manufactured during the year. Something like that. So you could answer it in two ways. The first one is very logical. For me, I'll answer this as cost of goods manufactured during the year. I have this 745 because these two are the ones that are completed regardless of whether it is delivered to the client or not. So my answer for the cost of goods manufactured is 745,000. How about the work in process ending? The work in process ending is of course this one. So 150,225. Yeah. 225 plus 30 is 255. This is work in process end. So that's actually very logical. And that is true, right? The job 3 that is unfinished is work in process end. And those that were finished, of course, it will go to the cost of goods manufactured. And if you are going to be asked what is the finished goods end, of course, this is the finished goods end. Because again, it was not yet delivered to the customer. If you're going to be asked how much is the cost of sales, the cost of sales is this 500,000 because it has already been delivered to the customer. And if you will be asked about what is the gross profit, that's 800 over minus 500,000, that's 300,000. But then again, the logical way will only be possible if you really understood the long cut. Actually, you can have the long cut for this one. Like for example, you could have direct materials used. Supposedly, we have raw materials beginning plus raw material purchases equals total raw materials available for use minus raw materials end equals direct materials used, for example. But since there is no mention about raw material purchases and etc., it is immediately the materials that were issued to job 1, job 2, job 3. So that means you go directly to direct materials used. The direct materials used is again 50 plus 20 plus 30, 100. You can have this. Of course, we have the direct labor. And the direct labor is 150. That's 300. There. So again, this is the long cut. The other one that I've told earlier is based on logic only. We have factory overhead, which is supposedly 600 because 200% of direct labor is the application rate for the applied factory overhead. But to be sure, we have 300 plus 300, that's 600. And we have total manufacturing cost. So that's 1 million. However, we have work in process. Oh no. If we're talking about cost of goods manufactured, it's actually not the 745 because 500 plus 245, it lacks this 10 plus 20 plus 40, that's 60, 70. So 70,000 plus the 745, the cost of goods manufactured should be 745,000 plus 70, 815. 815. That is the cost of goods manufactured logically. And then the finished goods ending is still 245. The cost of sales will be, the cost of sales is actually 570. The 500,000 right here plus the 70,000, because job 1, these are the current costs for job 1 in order to finish it. However, it has been started already in the previous period, so the total cost of job 1 is 70,000 plus 500. So that is supposed to be the cost of sales, 570. And the gross profit will be 230 only. So I'm modifying my first approach in answering because I forgot about the job 1, which was started already in the previous period. So again, for me, logically, again, job 3 is the work in process end, 255,000. The finished goods end is job 2, 245,000. The cost of sales is 570, which is this job 1, 500,000, plus the cost in the previous period of 70. The gross profit is of course 230, that is just 800,000 for the sales. And then minus 570, that's 230. And if you're going to ask about the cost of goods manufactured, since these two are finished, regardless of whether it is delivered or not to the customer, this will become part of the cost of goods manufactured plus the 70,000. So that is the cost of goods manufactured is 815. So again, let's have the second one, the long cut. So we have work in process beginning. So the work in process beginning is 70. So if this is our total cost now, plus the cost in the previous period, that will be accounted for, or the total goods placed in process is 1,070,000. And then we have the work in process ending. And again, there is only one job that was not finished. So we have 255,000. So if we deduct that one, we have the cost of goods manufactured or the finished. So 1,070,000 minus 255,000. You have 815, see? That's basically the same with the logical solving. But since we wanted to formalize our, what do you call this, computation, we have this. We have been talking about this in the past video, so I wanted you to see. Okay? Now, if the cost of goods manufactured is 815,000 and there is no finished goods beginning, actually, because there are no, in the previous period, there are no goods that were already completed but not yet delivered. So there is none. So we will put 0. So the total goods available for sale is 815. Okay? Now, we have finished goods ending the job number 2 because that is finished but not yet delivered to the customer, which is 245. So 815 minus 245, 570. See? It's very much the same with our logical because we already know the concept. If you know the concept, you can have this analysis immediately. Now, if you're going to be asked how much is the sale, how much is the gross profit, you'll have sales, 800,000. Cost of sales based on this computation is 570,000. 800 minus 570,000. You have 230,000. That is the gross profit. And it's still the same with here. Okay? So what is that to be accounted for? or the cost that we have to account for. Of course, the current costs and the costs in the previous period. So that's 1 million plus 70. Where did it go? Of course, to answer that, the 1,070,000, first off, it has been in the cost of sales. The cost of sales on that 1,070,000 is 570. Okay? Again, that's right. Where did this go? Again, the 1 million is the current cost, and the previous cost of the work in process is 70. So that is 1,070,000. Where did it go? Of course, 570 did go to the cost of sales because it has been delivered to the customer already. The other one went with the finished goods, 245,000. And the other one is in the work in process ending. So if you wanted to simplify the concept of job order costing, so 570, no. Work in process end is 255. You total that, and we have 1,070,000 to be accounted and as accounted. And again, job order costing is just answering the question, where did the to be accounted for go? Uh, The answer is it is being distributed to jobs. Aside from being distributed to this finished goods work in process end, we got here because at first we allocated it to different jobs. Okay? And remember always that this cost accumulation or cost allocation in our discussion will just be used by manufacturing entities offering products that are customized to the specific or unique needs of the clients. Okay? So that's it for this job order costing, the concept as well as the application. So again, on job order costing part 2, we will have an illustrative problem that I found. I found something. However, it will be on the next video already. And then, we're gonna talk about job order costings. What if there is waste? How do we account for waste on these jobs? For example, the jobs that you have taken on like wedding gowns, there are wastes in there, right? There are also scraps, if ever there are scraps. And aside from scraps, we have rework. So there are some kind of damage, so you have to rework on it. And there are some spoilage. So we have to account for those. And that would be on the next episode. So if you learned, please click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell and share it to those who need it. And again, thank you for always watching and congratulations because we have already graduated on the accounting cycle, 10 steps of accounting cycle. So you don't forget that ever. Okay? Because it will not only be used in taking some board exams like certified public accountant licensure examinations and other examinations, that will be used in the actual work of accountants. So thank you once again and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.